Glenn, can you say the question again?
Yeah, it's kind of a question that I could say again, but it's also more of a content or just for you guys to think about. But pre-selecting your books or as you're getting your books prepared, how are you deciding which books to think about rather than just going and pulling something off the shelf? Do you have a plan in place? And maybe that's in line with what you're looking at teaching for the semester. And it's not so much really a question as much as it is to just think about it. It's always best to have a plan ahead of place and say, okay, well, this is how this is going to happen, and I'm going to have these books this week, and then that way you can always prepare to better have your books ready for students to check out in that process. So it wasn't, I guess it was asked a question, but it wasn't so much of a question as much as it was just a statement to think about. And along with that, really the most important, the reason I'm doing the Zoom conference call, and the most important part really is just to get you guys to be thinking about things, to make a plan. Right now, probably the most important thing you can do is to have plans and even multiple plans. As I was preparing for today, I found a bunch of different resources that I can show you guys in a little bit, some of them, but one of them was just if we're in this scenario, here's what the library is going to do. If we're in this scenario, stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in each of those stages, here's different aspects of what we're going to do. And that way, no matter what happens, there's a plan in place for that. For you to go about that process. Like, for example, if you're planning on having students come to your library and all of a sudden the school says, you know what, we're actually going to leave the students in the classroom, and you've got to all of a sudden bring products to, bring books to the students, how are you going to do that? Which books are you going to choose? How are you going to clean the carts? How are you going to make sure the books are quarantined? Are you going to do, once a week you're going to the classrooms, and so you go to 1 3rd grade and then those books aren't able to be brought to the next 3rd grade class or something like that. And so really it's more of just thinking through and making a plan and making sure that you've thought about things ahead of time so that you're not caught off guard with the different options that are there. And so, sorry, if you want to answer, the question was, how are you selecting the books that you're going to be promoting to the kids during this time? And how are you taking care of those books? I don't know if anybody has a good thought.
I'm selecting from, we have a list of books that students are, it's called Book Me a Passage, and it's books that they are required to read, or it's optional books, but it's a book list that students can pick from, and they have to record what books they've read. For each quarter, they have to have so many points. So I'll use that as my starting point. And then I know my students, and I kind of know what their interests are, so I'll have a lot of those books out. And I want feedback from them too, so I'll probably email the teachers and tell students to be thinking about what they'd like, and they're welcome to email me some books that they'd like me to put on the cart.
Okay, and that's a great option. So how do students make requests like that for you? So you're saying email the teachers,
or talk to me when they see me, or I don't know. I'd love to hear what other people are doing.
Anybody else have a thought?
So I have to operate on the assumption that this entire school year will be digital, because I don't know if it won't. So I have to assume that it will. So next week they pick up their textbooks. So it's my one opportunity to get print books into the hands of students when they're physically present on campus. So we're doing an outdoor library. We're like building an outdoor library and displaying as many books as possible. So we're going to break them down by genre, probably, so there's a little bit of something for everyone. I also am going to create a Google form for book purchase requests. They want the library to purchase something. And then I am also going to have a form where they can set up research consultations with me, or and I'm also going to be hopefully running 3 or 4 book clubs. So I'm hoping that all of those avenues will help.
Yeah. Awesome. Anybody else comments on how do I find a book? How does a student find a book in your library? If not, we can go on to the next question. All right. The next question is, how is a book checked out from your library? So depending on the scenario, if you're not using online to check out, then that means there's somebody has to check it out. Are students self-checking? I've heard of students self-checking out books. I've heard of librarians, the only ones that touch the books, so they're the only ones that are checking them out. Any other thoughts on what is your process for students to be able to check out a book?
This is something I was hoping to hear from other librarians today. If I go to my classrooms with a card where my library has a fixed computer where I need to scan the books and then scan the student's code to check the book out to them. Do you all have plans yet as to how, like, will you just be making a list as students check out books, then coming back into the library and spending an hour, typing in the books and checking them out? Or does anybody have a plan? Because I have not been able to think of something that would work easily.
Do you have any option to get it on a laptop for you? Like to download the software onto a laptop that you could take it remotely to the classroom?
I don't have a laptop. I do have an iPad at home. I need to see if I can thank you.
Which software are you using?
It's called Lib, L-I-B-I-B.
Okay. I've heard of a couple people say that one in the past. I've not looked at it though.
We have our a wireless scanner, and then as long as we're in the building, we should be fine to be able to use our laptop if we have to go to the room. And then Leanne, I think you had said, bringing books to the kids and knowing your students and having them make requests. That was one of the things I was thinking through this summer. Like, if I needed to go to the classroom, then they're going to have to be patient. They're not going to get it right then and there. I might be delivering it back later. So it would be me writing down, okay, they want books about trains, and then coming back and saying, which 2 books do you want? Or here's what we found. And checking it out for them.
It's going to be not easy for anybody. It's going to take patience.
Going back to the old days with the paper where they just wrote the name.
Yes. Manually checking them out. But like you said, too, spending hours putting it back in the system. Yeah.
So our school, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know about you guys, but we have lists for books, like kids want the same books and we only have 2 of them. So if they have to be quarantined for 3 days, it's going to be a longer wait time. They're all going to learn the virtue of patience. So, yeah.
Or have to get online at their library and use digital books. I mean, that's the other option, I guess.
Or 2, if there was a specific book that was popular, if Clorox wiping the book down would work for them to have a shorter turnaround. I don't know. If the 72-hour thing is, how long it lives on surfaces. I don't know.
I've heard no. That's what the best literature practices I've heard is actually they've extended the quarantine time to 4 days for books and 5 days for magazines. And that's just what it is.
Is that books in paper or books in plastic or both?
That is specifically books in plastic. So if you have a protective cover over your book, they say 4 days.
Right.
And magazines 5.
Hey, Christine, do you know where you saw that at?
Yeah, one of my librarian groups. Let me see if I can find it.
Well, actually, the American Library Association has put that out. Yeah. So,
because I have one of the resources that I found. Oh, I can't do that. Let me see here. All right. So I'm trying to maybe I'll just go ahead and I'm going to share my screen for a second, and I'll show you some of the resources that I found. But this Realm project right here, this is probably the only actual like study that I've seen that's been done. And this is a resource that's done on specifically on library resources, including materials like DVD, CD cases, hardcover, book covers, soft
Yes,
cover.
this is one I've read.
And so this is an ongoing study. They've done phase 1 and phase 1 test results, phase 2 test results. They've announced and started, they've done 3 and they're on for test results number 4 that they're expecting mid-September. So, and all of them are different, different things that's being tested for in different scenarios, whether books are just sitting up by themselves, if books are stacked in a stack, how that affects the coronavirus on the products. And so this is definitely one resource that I would recommend getting. As you guys have mentioned, I have the ALA here in the IFLA. I don't know if anybody's searched this, but I would definitely recommend this. They've got a very, very lengthy, you know, right here, reopening libraries. But this is an international federation of library associates or something like that, I think. And so it has everything from, you know, Germany and Japan and South America, you know, different places around the world and how they're dealing with coronavirus and going back to school resources. So I would check out the IFLA.org and the ALA resources there. So those two are really good, but then that's also where I got the other resources that I have here, which is my pop-up menu. This right here, I think is from an Idaho library, but this is what I was talking about with the plan. So right here, you've got like fully digital, all online, and how they can get materials, what materials they're allowed to get, curbside pickup, lobby, main desk, limited resources, then precautionary, and then, you know, the next one will be fully open, fully normal. But those resources are, so I'm trying to get to this little tab right there. But this is the one I wanted to show you though, the Realm. If you're talking about time periods and stuff, I think the latest that I've read said 24 hours on paperback and 72 hours on hardback surfaces or like DVDs and CD cases. But that was off of the first and second study. And of course, there's more products coming out on a regular basis. But I would definitely recommend those resources to you. And then we go back to that. So, but timing is important. I think that one of the most important things is, from everything I've read, there has got to be some kind of expected cleaning or quarantining of the products, and each person's going to be different. And in reference to that, also, if you look at the ALA, one of the things they highly recommend is going down the list of like local jurisdiction, state jurisdiction, national jurisdiction, looking at the CDC's website, and they have like a whole checklist of things that you can go through to kind of get the most updated resources there. So again, yeah, go ahead.
We're spraying all hard surfaces, desks, doorknobs, bathrooms, all that kind of stuff, tables the kids use with. I was looking it up to find it. It's called vinyl oxide. It's something that we were able to get through the state of Texas. Has anybody looked into being able to spray the books and leaving them? It's like a 60-second dry time is what I do know. But spray them, leave them out, then put them back on the shelves.
I've heard it's not good for the books. Like it degrades the quality. I mean, but then you got to ask yourself, like, for example, if you're circulating Diary of a Wimpy Kid, that's not going to, you don't have to worry about the archival quality of the book, right? It's going to fall apart anyway in like whatever, 6 months or a year or something.
We don't have very many things that are archival quality.
Right.
It's a small elementary school library.
Exactly. So I think it depends how long do you want your book to last. If you're looking to add a book and you want it in your collection for 10 years, then I think that's something to consider. But if you add a book in knowing full well this is going to fall apart within 6 months to a year, then
But do you have to do both? I mean, do you have, if you quarantine for the 3 days or however many days, do you also have to disinfect? Or
No.
can you do one or the other? Or what's
Well,
everyone doing?
Where would I lay out those books? I mean, they're going to have to be stacked together. Otherwise, I don't have the facility to lay out every book every child looks at.
That's why the Realm study is so important, because they're doing it in a stacked configuration.
Yeah.
So with the most recent information from Realm, they know that at day 4, even if you have glossy pages like in a picture book and they're in a stacked configuration, they're free from the COVID virus. So then at that point, you can reshelve them. So like, for example, I'll take my computer over there to show you our quarantine area, but we have ours in a stacked configuration like that. And then we reshelve them. Hang on.
So when you check them in, do you check them in right away, or do you wait till after the quarantine?
That's my next
question. There's an official answer and an unofficial answer.
I know.
The official answer is that we have a library book Dropbox, and we take them and we put them in the quarantine table. And that is usually what we do. But if it's just me and I'm willing to take the risk and I'm lazy, then I'll check them in and put them on the quarantine table. But here's what they look like. So we have them all like here, and then we have like a list of like when they can be reshelved. This is when they were returned, and this is how long they have to be quarantined. And it's a pretty big table, so we just stack them up like that. And then we have 3 of those.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Some of the thoughts that I've read about for quarantining, and I wanted to ask just general cleaning, all the different resources that you're using for cleaning and talk about that. But as for returning a book, which that was my next question, was returning a book. Now, I've read a lot of different stuff from having a Dropbox, and I guess probably the most consistent or the most prevalent way that I've heard it is that students will drop the books in a Dropbox or in some kind of a bin, and then they're basically quarantined for 3 to 4 days, and then that will then be put back into circulation. And those bins, can be kind of put in a specific spot. So some people mentioned being color coded. So like red means it comes back, it's available on Tuesday, green, it's available on Wednesday, something like that. Some people, as Christine had, like papers where it specifically said it. I think probably the most important thing would just be having a system in place so that when the products do come back, like, okay, this bin, we have these black bins that we carry books around in. So this bin, I'm going to put this in this one spot, and I'm not going to touch it for 4 days. And then this next bin is going to go in a different, maybe next to it, but in a different spot. And then that's going to be 4 days out. And so that way there's always that kind of circulation, but it's kind of a 4 day, or 3 or 4 day process where you're basically putting it somewhere and you're not touching it for a period of days. And then at that point in time, there's no need for cleaning it. There's no need for wiping them down or anything like that, because the quarantine, the time period itself will allow the coronavirus to dissipate and be removed from the products.
So if you need a book and it should be in quarantine, can you clean it instead?
Yeah, that would be, you could, when we were first, we did a Zoom call back in March, I think, and I think at that point in time, every librarian was like wiping down every. That's
what I did, yeah.
And so, yeah, you could always do that because that cleaning product still does work, but I think you're more likely it's going to see more damage on the products. You're going to go through products a lot faster.
Well, and what about the inside of the book? The paper part, where
right.
Kids have touched it and spit on it. And
some people like to lick their finger and move the papers that way, and I think that's really where more of the quarantining product is more helpful. Now, the study that I mentioned, if I'm correct, said that like paperbacks are only have a 24-hour lifetime. So, in reality, even, if it's not like a picture book or a board book, something like that, 24 hours is not too terribly long to worry about, and that's only if coronavirus is on it in the first place. So, does anybody else have any, maybe they have a plan for how they're going to allow kids to return books?
I have a question. Our policy right now at our school, I'm only there 2 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
The kids return books. Technically, they're not allowed to take books out if they have forgotten their books. But if I'm just going to take the books, box them up, I have no way of knowing who's brought books back other than the honor system, which will work probably with the older kids, but not with, JK to grade 3, where parents pack their backpack every day.
Yeah.
That's why I check in. I'm going to be checking them in as they return them and then quarantine them. I'll wear gloves and a mask when I do it, because it would be impossible for me to keep track. But I know a lot of librarians in my community in the public schools are not touching the books, and they do not scan them or anything before they put them in quarantine. But I can't do that.
And that begs another question. I mean, and I think that to some extent there has to be some flexibility on returning books, because, and this is another thing, just to be aware and have a plan. What if a kid is sick? Does he have to return the book? What if he goes ahead and returns the book? And then a kid is sick and they have returned a book and you have it in your library, So to some extent, I think that there has to be some leniency where you say, no, actually, if you're feeling sick, I don't want your book for another 2 weeks. You have to keep your book out, from that perspective. And so I think to some extent, some of the library resources that a lot of us have come accustomed to is going to be not valid, because your numbers are going to be all out of whack in some sense, and that's going to be really difficult. But I mean, have you thought about that? If a kid is sick, have you thought about kids returning products and you don't want those products right away, or you don't want to touch those products right away, or anything like that? How are you going to address that within everything? Yeah, Mary Lee, did you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm in the library only 1 day a week before COVID, and I only see 3 classes a week. So we're on a 2-week rotation. So already when students are absent, we automatically renew their books for them because they're not there. So I think that would continue. If a student is out sick or quarantined, they would just automatically have their books renewed for them. So there's no issue in the computer about whether they're late or if they're getting a fine or anything like that. So that's what we do.
And that could be a process where you just automatically renew everything until it's returned, through the quarantine process. So that way it doesn't show up as being an available product.
That made me think our system automatically sends an email to the parent once the book is late. and that needs to be overridden in some manner, so that I just look at the list of what's checked out later and talk to people individually, or maybe send emails, rather than having the system actually turn around and parents don't need another thing to worry about if they do have someone homesick, that, oh no, I've got a library fine. And so I don't know if y'all systems do that type of thing where they just automatically send that.
My system doesn't automatically send it. I go in each week and look at all overdue books, or I can choose to do just overdue in the last 30 days or whatever, and then the emails are sent to parents. But I only the ones that I choose go. And that's with Mandarin.
But how many people are going to do overdue fines? Because I've decided to make the decision to just not do them, because what's the point? Because it's just going to create more stress. And then I'm just going to, if a book is overdue and I've tried multiple times to get a hold of the family and they can't give me a reason of like the kid's sick or whatever, then I can bill. But I don't think overdue fines make sense in this time period.
We don't do overdue fines. I continue to send the overdue notice to parents, but we only charge them for the book at the end of the semester if we haven't gotten it. So twice a year, if they haven't gotten to me by the end, then they're charged.
Ours is the same way. You just don't get your report card. But,
Yeah.
you just don't want that. The system will keep sending an email to the parents when you haven't returned it. And if we end up being sent back home, or if a student's sick, or we just don't need to add to that stress of, oh yeah, I've also got a library book. When I can look at it and know, okay, the family's sick, and know that it's all gonna come out in the wash by the time the report cards need to go out.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Because I was, no one's ever, the way our overdues work is we do charge overdue fees, and we usually split the proceeds with another office. So I haven't asked their permission yet if we can get rid of fines, but I'm just going to do it because.
And Jean asked a good question about a quantity of books checking out. Have you guys thought about increasing the number of books available or decreasing the number of books available because of coronavirus?
I actually was thinking of decreasing, especially for the younger ones. I lost a substantial amount of books. What happened here was after we had March break and then we shut down, and all the kids took extra books for the March break.
Mm-hmm.
And then to get them all back, and we never went back to school, obviously. I lost quite a few. And I've emailed and just not coming back. And we also have a good number of international students, and they left. They, of course, got sent back to South Korea and China. And I'm pretty sure they're not going to be able to get back here for September. So their books are all gone too. So I'm thinking I might just decrease, or, the number they're allowed to take on the what if we get shut down.
It might be difficult if, those popular books that everybody's wanting and you're having to clean them. Comes in and takes the top 10 most popular books, and all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute.
C'est sur les bibliothèques, donc c'est.
3 weeks,
Oui.
So, yeah, so it definitely makes it a little bit.
Bon, t'as besoin d'un tigre.
I guess.
I'm planning on just going to checking out every other week and having story time every other week. So checkout will be every 2 weeks.
Non, ordre alphabétique.
Yeah. Yeah. Do they have to return them in 1 week, and that gives you a week to?
No, they return in 2 weeks.
Je vais voir, je vais lancer l'appel là.
If somebody checks out a book, then that means that person is going to be having that book for 4 weeks then, theoretically.
No, it would be due in
for 3
2
weeks. Or, 2 weeks and 4 days or whatever.
Well, I would still put it out. I mean, when they return it, it will just automatically go into the quarantine box.
Right.
So, and any of the books that are returned, because kids randomly return, they don't just return on their day for library.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. This is all, I have no idea how it's going to work, but I do know that I only have them for 30 minutes. And so I know that I can't do checkout and story. The way that I have to do checkout now, I can't do it all. So that's why I'm doing that. I'm having story 1 week and choose books and check out the next week.
Yeah.
Anna, did you say that you're still having the kids come to the library, or are you doing that in the classroom?
I am having kids come to the library. We have a fairly large area, and they'll be having to wear masks. They won't be able to be spaced, but we've been told by the health department that they can be together with masks on and not distanced for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. So my story has to be within 10 to 15 minutes.
What state are you in, if I can ask?
In Kansas.
You're in Kansas.
So where are you from?
California.
Oh.
And
Is
LA
it stricter there?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm here to glean ideas.
Well, I don't know how it will work. I mean, it's going to be the first few weeks I'll find out, and that might have to change. You know, my students are so used to coming to the library and getting to choose whatever books they want. I feel like I need to put like duct tape crime scene things on all of the shelves so that nobody touches the books. Because I think for the kindergarten, first and second, it's going to be really, really hard for them not to just go and pull a book. So we'll see how it goes.
That does bring up another thing, because I have at the end here my list of, you know, just things for you to think about. But one of the things I have on here was, you know, has anybody considered I know some schools have done this, but I haven't heard about librarians, but has anybody considered like a librarian's pledge, where you have some of these things written up, like if you're sick, don't return your book. You know, when you come into the library, don't congregate, or talking about different hygiene, like specific things for the library. Has anybody thought about that, where, you know, you start off the school year with some kind of a, paper or form or pledge where the students say, you know, this is how we're going to do the library this year. I want you to sign this. I want your parents to sign this. I want them to understand how things are happening nowadays. Anybody thought about that?
No.
No.
We're distributing policies and procedures when they come in for their textbooks, but we aren't going to catch all the students that way, because if you have AP classes, we don't distribute your textbooks, and they don't have to sign it, but it is something to let them know about.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, some kind of a handout, but I would, you know, especially if students are coming into the library and the, you know, different changes and expectations, having something where you're stating out what those expectations are, you know, might be something to consider.
It's something that I had planned to do the very first day, to just talk with students, that'll be the first thing that we'll do. I hadn't thought about a pledge, though. I think that's might be something to consider.
Well, and it's also the information for parents as well, in knowing some of the changes. You know, where can the students go to find books when they're at home? You know, they can go online to this place, or where I'm going to be posting videos once a week. Here's where you go to find those videos. You know, some of those things where you make it a little bit more accessible for the students to understand the expectations on them as students during this time period. So, any other comments or questions?
I have a question. I joined at 10 my time. Has the meeting already been going? Because I thought it was noon Central Time.
It was noon Eastern Time. So yes, it has been going. But
okay.
Amy, I am recording it. So I'm glad you made it in. I'm sorry. I'm glad you made it in. I am recording it though, so I will make sure to get you that.
The last email I got from you said noon CDT, which I thought was Central Time.
That would be Central Time, yeah. I'm not sure. If I made a mistake, I entirely apologize.
It's okay.
Sorry about that. And that is exactly why I record it.
Yes, well, so my question for everybody is, are all of you going back on campus? Because we haven't received, in LA County, they initially said that they were possibly allowing waivers for private schools, but no LA County school is allowed to, meet. It's all distance learning.
I'm in California, and we just had a meeting about that with our school. So yes, you can get a waiver from the county, but since all of the data fiasco with the websites is askew, counties aren't even receiving waivers right now until they can find out their actual numbers.
Yes.
There is a private school who has a lawsuit that's being heard on Monday the 17th by a judge, and we're watching to see what happens with them, whether the judge will let private schools go back. But we have board members who are lawyers, and they've looked at all of the quote unquote mandates, and nothing in those mandates is actually a law or an order. They're all recommendations. And so we're going back unless there's an actual order from the state, or like an executive order or a county health order or a judge's mandate, a legal order. And so they've determined, looking at all of the most recent official written orders, that there is no law that says we can't go back.
Where are you located? What school?
We're in Northern California.
Kansas has been through that already. With the governor said that we couldn't start school until September, and that was already, she was already denied that power to do that. It's now in the only school districts make the choice, or counties, I think, make the choice, and they give each school district chooses, and private schools choose as long as they're following the local health guidelines. So we're opening.
Sandy, I am in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we are not opening. We are going digital for the first quarter, and we're going to revisit closer to, and that is what all the other private schools in the area are doing as well, as far as I know.
Our head of school was hoping that we'd get that waiver and be able to open up. I know our families really would like, with all kinds of protocols in place, masks and distance and all of that, but would really like to be on campus, have on-campus learning. And so, I have plan A and plan B, and neither one of them is really very firm, but probably all of you were doing a lot of things toward the end of the year. I was recording story times. Probably a lot of you did that. But I began to have checkouts with parents coming with their kids. They'd sign up on Sign Up Genius, one family at a time, masks, and I'd provide gloves, and they could go in the library, and I had a sign-up sheet where they'd write the barcode of the book, which I later input. And I don't know if any of you have done that, where they've come to the library, on sign-up times. It's hard. It's hard for younger kids to pick books on using the catalog. The older kids can. They put them on hold. I can go in and check them out to them and, leave them for them in some fashion to be picked up. But the younger kids really have to see the books. So that's, they really have to see it. How big is it, And we have AR, so they are looking for their level also. But, I need to figure out a way to make books available to them so that they can see them, I guess.
Yeah, we did talk a little bit about how kids find books, and so that's one of the things that you missed a little bit. But just some of the ideas that came around were if your checkout system, your library catalog system has some kind of an online database where they can look at. You can also, some of the things were videos, where you do a video and you can kind of go through and you could do a shot of the bookshelf itself, or you can lay out books and show different books and talk about different books for kids so that they can kind of get an idea of the different books that are there. Maybe a paper handout that goes out to the students where there's maybe a picture and some information on it, what have you. So there's, I think one person had mentioned Google Classroom, using that, if you have a library website, using that to put out information on your different products that you have.